And I think when Alan comes on, he's going to talk about some of those things. But we're in the third iteration of our admissions portal right now. So in 18 months, 2 years, we're in our third version of it because we're trying to make it frictionless for the student. I mean, students expect the consumerization of their environment. They expect a Zappos-like experience. They expect an Amazon experience. They don't expect this archaic-looking UI that's not friendly to them. And it is all about the student, and that's what Salesforce allows us to do, is focus on the student, not siloed pieces of information, whether they're Blackboard or some other system. We can see that whole student. So I'm going to bring Alan Laurentano up right now, and he came on about 3 or 4 months ago, and he's heading up student services, and it was his job really to start to look at what our students actually cost us. So at $2,500 a year, there's not a lot of room here to waste money. And Alan came in to make sure we know what each student costs for every interaction. And he found some surprising things. So, Alan?
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Here. Thank you. That was wicked awesome. Thanks, Brian. So, Brian, as Brian mentioned, I came on a few months ago to College for America. And, one of the slides Brian had showed earlier with the airplane, and you're building an airplane while it's flying. It's an interesting concept because sometimes when you look at the support side of things, it gets kind of left in cargo. You know, you're innovating so quickly and you're developing so rapidly that sometimes you forget about the support side of things. So in addition to that, it's a really incredible program that we offer here, and we've got incredible students. But service can't be mediocre. We got to make sure that we're servicing our students to the best of our ability, and we're really focused on moving them through the life cycle. So, in addition, as Brian mentioned, it's $2,500 a year for the service. So you've got to innovate, but you've also got to make sure that you're leveraging the tools that you have available to you. So, what I did was I came in and I started doing an evaluation, and I started on the front line, and I looked at the folks on the front line internally, those that are in the trenches, and I started looking at what they're doing. And it was really interesting to me. I started looking at our cases, looking at phone calls, stuff that we were logging. What I started realizing is a lot of the stuff isn't being tracked in Salesforce. We've got this fantastic tool, but we're not really leveraging it. In addition, I started looking at a lot of the processes that we had in place, and they were disconnected. Not a lot of the folks were talking to each other. Again, we weren't tracking all the stuff in Salesforce effectively. Cases and calls weren't being managed properly. And ultimately, what you start doing is when you start analyzing a lot of this, one of the most important things, again, when you're looking at a $2,500 tuition for the year, you've got to try and scale this model down and keep it simple. And we can't do that if we're not tracking a lot of this information. We don't know what it costs. We're not collecting feedback, so we can't report effectively on what's working and what isn't working. And in addition, we weren't soliciting key information from our stakeholders. So what were the results of all of this, sitting down and doing all this evaluation? As I mentioned, inconsistent tracking of our student interactions. Our data wasn't accurate. We had a poor student experience. So if the student went to our portal and they were submitting a case, searching our knowledge base, the information was disjointed. So we weren't sure how accurate some of this information was. The channels weren't synchronized. We had folks emailing us, some folks using the portal. Nobody was really calling us. At that point, it was pretty much 100% self-service. But again, it's a pretty special program. And even though we want to scale down our self-service portal and make it as effective and proactive as possible, we also realize that at certain points along the life cycle, they really need to speak with us. And they want to, if there's a critical point in which they're having challenge submitting a project or a piece of work, and they're a little concerned about the time, or they want to get their project in and get it graded quickly. So we weren't leveraging our self-service opportunities. Self-service is a big thing. For me personally, as I approach support, case deflection, for example, is a huge way to try and circumvent a lot of our case volume in a way with which we can, again, reduce costs. And we really weren't leveraging the Salesforce potential. I mean, we had this in place for about a year, and we weren't doing much with it. And so looking at all this, I said, this is a pretty simple thing to fix. It's not going to take a lot of time. We already have the technology internally. We had some fantastic people working behind the scenes, but again, it wasn't all connected. So So Brian talks about the connected campus. What is the connected campus? It's, we've got our students, we've got our adjunct faculty, we've got coaches, learning coaches, these advisors who are there to really, who are there to, really kind of move our students along and keep them motivated and keep them engaged in the process. And what I found was, here's some key roles within our organization, all doing a fantastic job, but independent of each other. There's a lot of silos, but all very important to the student life cycle. So by implementing the Service Cloud and really trying to leverage all of the potential that the Service Cloud could offer us, particularly knowledge, we started moving in the direction of, again, this concept of a connected campus where Salesforce is the system of engagement, and we're being able to track all that. So what is some of the stuff that we're doing? So my plan of attack coming in was, as I mentioned, I really wanted to try and make this a self-service model, but really make the experience special. It's an emotional experience for our students. So implemented a virtual contact center using 8x8. And what this allows us to do is in those moments where somebody's going to be reaching out and giving us a call, we can route those calls effectively to the right person. It's integrated in Salesforce seamlessly, so I can track every transaction. Again, very important because we need to know how many transactions are happening, why they're calling. We can actually track that subject matter now, and we can report on it, and we can see, what's the certain topics that people are calling about, what challenges are they facing, and then we can adjust accordingly based off of that. And again, because it's seamless in Salesforce, the caller, there's no disruption in the actual experience for the caller. I reevaluated the use of the Service Cloud. When I came in, I actually spent a couple of weeks on the phone and managing cases, and it was pretty disjointed, I have to say. But part of that was because they were really leveraging what the Service Cloud could offer, particularly the Agent Console and knowledge, embedding knowledge into the agent's side of the experience and making sure that the information is available to them quickly so they could actually process a transaction and move on faster. Leveraging improving our knowledge base experience and really leveraging the features like case deflection, where instead of every transaction coming in, whether it was through email or through the portal, was my arm's getting heavy. We wanted to make sure that they were getting the answers that they needed faster, and really identifying what good looks like. When you don't have all the data and you don't know why people are calling and you don't know what the challenges are, how do we know what good looks like? By collecting all this information, we can then start looking at and analyzing these phone calls and these cases and really getting a good understanding of what does good look like and making the adjustments that we need to make sure that we're improving the quality of our service. Solicit feedback, right? By implementing the Service Cloud and using things like satisfaction surveys after every phone call is captured or every case is resolved, we can now get the perspective of the student or the perspective of the faculty member, and we can make sure that we're doing the best that we can, and if we aren't, we can adjust again accordingly to that. And then really, it's all about integrating all of our channels. So if you think about, we were managing our portals. We've got multiple portals that we're managing. We've got phone calls, but we've got folks posting stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and we want to make sure that regardless of how they're reaching us, that the experience is the same, that they're getting responses quickly, and we're not losing anything in the process. And ultimately, by implementing all this stuff, we're moving towards the point where we're creating a seamless customer service experience. And by leveraging all that with the power of Salesforce, we're pretty happy to reach some legendary service statuses, and I think we're on our way. So,
thanks, Alan. So up next is going to be Dave McWhinney. Dave's the Principal Product Manager at College for America. He's been there since day one. Some of you may not recognize Dave right now. This is how you usually see Dave. This was the movie he put out last year, Dude, Where's My Workflow? And he's been seen on Twitter, webinars, just about everywhere. So just a reminder, don't let your friends take pictures of you at Dreamforce 13 and then share it with them. So that's, as you drink tonight, remember this picture. Or don't remember the picture. Come on up, Dave.
Thanks, Brian. That was awesome. All right, so as I switch gears, we're going to go from slide presentation down to what I consider a live demo. So again, Brian mentioned some really cool stuff. Alan mentioned some really cool stuff around building an LMS. Again, we started out with Canvas structure or structured Canvas, and it was really more the experience we found literally within the first week or two. Students, it was really faculty focused. So the whole experience of Blackboard and Canvas is really built around the faculty being able to get their curriculum in, and then students being able to do work, and then the actual teachers being able to grade the students. Didn't quite work well for us, especially when we're trying to make a fantastic student experience. So right off the bat, we decided to develop on top of Salesforce, which was going to be our main focus anyways. And we wanted everything to be student-focused, the students first. You hear that all the time. Connected Campus is all about the student. Student is the one who's driving the process, and the teachers are there just to help facilitate the student get through the process. So as you can see here, this is what we call our dashboard. So this dashboard really represents what the student is doing, the here and now. As we all know, school's a long journey. Sometimes it's quicker for others. Sometimes it's long for others. For me, it was long. But it was a fun journey. However, we wanted to make sure that this dashboard represented what the student was going to be doing at their moment. Since we don't have faculty, the students really drive when their projects are due, when they're going to actually work on information. It's not the teacher telling the student, it's the student telling themselves what they're going to do. So what you see here is the student can see their full life cycle of their program. So our program has 120 competencies, and the student can see right at a quick glance that, wow, this is pretty neat. I'm about 7.5% through my process or through the program to get an associate's degree. However, I have more projects scheduled. If I master those, I can be 15% of the way through the program. That's a little incentive, especially when I'm paying $2,500 a year. I want to see how quickly I can go through the program. So this dashboard really gives the student the ability to see where they are now, see what they're working on, and see where they can be. So on this dashboard, you're also going to see this activity feed. The activity feed really is geared around the students' projects, what they have open, what they're working on, where the project is, whether they've submitted it, whether it's in a reviewer's hands, or whether they're just waiting to actually submit some information. We also have what's called our connections. This is pretty cool. So each of our students have a coach. They don't have an advisor, they have a learning coach. The learning coach is really there to help them through life issues or life lessons that they're bumping into, and they're trying to get them over that hump so they can move forward. So students can actually reach right out to their coach, leveraging the Salesforce platform. We actually are leveraging private messaging. This is Mike Ditka. He gets stuff done. You know that, Ditka versus student, Ditka by 10. So students can come right in here, send in a message, and this is actually doing a private message. And as we all know, using Chatter, private messages actually email the coach. So the coach doesn't have to be logged into Salesforce all the time. They can see their students interacting with them right from their phone. They can actually reply to that email, and that gets right back into the feed. And that student, in turn, also gets an email letting them know that their coach actually replied. So again, even though this is like centered, we want the student in here. They don't have to be in here to get work done. They don't have